Are you familiar with the Electoral College and its role in the United States presidential election? Moreover, do you know the other essential components of the US government? Interested in learning about the politics in the United States in general? If so, you are in luck. In this video, I'll provide a comprehensive explanation of these topics. Stay tuned. The United States of America came into existence with the Declaration of Independence from Britain in 1776 and the official ratification of the Constitution in 1789. Throughout its history, the country has seen a steady growth in the number of states, currently standing at 50. The United States is commonly recognized as a presidential, federal, bicameral, and two-party democracy, boasting a well-defined separation of powers. If you are unfamiliar with these terms, you can refer to my channel's playlist where I explain each concept extensively. According to the US Constitution, the President serves as both the head of government and the head of state, while also holding the position of Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces. The process of electing the President in America is indeed distinctive and can be considered unique. Unlike most democracies worldwide, the President is not chosen solely by the majority of popular vote. Instead, a unique system known as the Electoral College is responsible for selecting the president. To grasp the concept and reasoning behind the Electoral College, let's first explore the election process in the United States. Since the very inception of the United States, preserving the status and identity of individual states have been a core principle. As a result, one can argue that the president is elected by the states. The current method utilized to elect the president involves the Electoral College. Allow me to elaborate. Presidential elections occur on a single day across all states, but they are conducted independently. The outcome of the election in each state is determined separately. Then, in the second phase of the election, the states cast their votes to elect the president. In this phase, each state is granted voting rights in proportion of the number of representatives in the legislative branch, amounting to 535 votes. Additionally, Washington, D.C., as the capital and not affiliated with any state, holds 3 electoral votes. Consequently, a total of 538 votes are in play. Now, for someone to become president, they must secure a minimum of 270 votes, which is half plus one of the electoral votes. Here is another unique aspect. Except in 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, whoever wins the election in a state, even by just 1 vote, receives all of the state's electoral votes. There is no proportional division based on the state's popular votes. The presidential term in the United States lasts for 4 years, and as the result of the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, a person is limited to serving a maximum of 2 terms as president. Before this amendment, except for Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was elected president 4 times, no one had served more than 2 terms in office. Throughout the history of the United States, a total of 59 presidential elections have been held, leading to 46 individuals becoming president. To date, no woman has held this position, and only 1 non-white president has been elected. As a result of the distinctive structure of presidential elections I previously described, 5 presidents have assumed power despite receiving fewer popular votes than their opponents. Additionally, 14 presidents were unsuccessful in their re-election bids and were unable to retain their seats. It is worth noting that among these 14, 3 lost their party's primary elections and did not advance to the final race. The vice president, who is the second in command of the executive branch, was originally elected as a part of the presidential election. However, since the ratification of 12th Amendment in 1804, the vice president is now separately elected by the Electoral College. The primary role of the vice president in the US is to become the president if, for any reason, the president is unable to complete their term. This ensures that there is no need for an early election in such cases. Until now, 9 vice presidents have ascended to the presidency. In 8 cases, the death of the incumbent president led to this, and in 1 case, the president's resignation paved the way for the vice president to take the responsibilities. There have been 49 vice presidents, all of whom except 1 have been white males. The legislative branch in the United States is known as Congress. As previously mentioned, the US follows a bicameral structure, with the upper chamber being the Senate and the lower chamber known as the House of Representatives or simply the House. Each state, regardless of its population and size, is represented by 2 senators in the Senate. Currently, with 50 states in America, there are a total of 100 senators. The term of representation in the Senate is 6 years, and the senators are divided into 3 classes, with elections held every 2 years for 1/3 of the seats. There are no restrictions on senators' re-election. The Vice President serves as the President of the Senate and holds the right to cast the deciding vote in the event of a tie. On the other hand, the number of representatives in the House of Representatives varies from state to state. According to the law, there are a total of 435 members in the House. After each census, which is conducted every 10 years, the number of representatives for each state is determined based on its population. However, each state is granted at least 1 representative in the House. Moreover, each state is divided into the congressional districts. For instance, California, with 52 representatives, does not elect all of them through a single statewide vote. Instead, the state is divided into 52 congressional districts, each holding its own independent election to choose a representative. The term of representation in the House of Representatives is 2 years, and there is no limitation on re-election. The highest court in the United States is Supreme Court. It consists of 9 justices, and the President nominates them, subject to confirmation by the Senate. Justices on the Supreme Court have no time limitations and effectively serve for life. The only ways to leave this position are through resignation, retirement, impeachment, or death. The impeachment process for a Supreme Court justice is similar to that of the President. To remove a president or a Supreme Court justice, the House must first vote to impeach them with a majority. In the next stage, the Senate acts as a sort of a trial, and if 2/3 of the senators vote to convict the president or the justice, they will be removed from office. Throughout US history, 3 presidents and 1 Supreme Court justice have been impeached by the House of Representatives, but none have been convicted and removed by the Senate. Like the federal government's 3-branch structure, state governments also follows a tripartite system. The executive branch is led by the governor, who is elected directly by the people. All states, except for Nebraska, have a bicameral legislature comprising the Senate and the House of Representatives. Furthermore, each state has its own state-level Supreme Court, serving as the highest judicial authority within the state. The political structure in the United States is predominantly characterized by a 2-party system. Since the mid-19th century, particularly after the end of the Civil War, the Democratic and Republican parties have emerged as the 2 major political forces. Notably, the last instance of a non-nominee from either of these parties winning the electoral vote in the presidential election was in 1968. This historical context is intertwined with the racial issues and the civil rights movement in America, a topic that merits further discussion. The Republican Party, established in 1854, is considered to be right-wing and primarily supported by affluent individuals and the white males. Remarkably, since 1964, white male voters have consistently favored Republican candidates in all elections. The party's emblematic color is red and its symbol is an elephant. On the other hand, the Democratic Party, founded in 1828, is regarded as a left-wing and finds its primary support from diverse groups, including women and non-white individuals. Their party color is blue and their symbol is donkey. In summary, Republicans advocate for Christian values, the right to bear arms, and tax reduction, while the Democrats prioritize issues related to minority rights, gun control, and the provision of government services such as healthcare. However, the current party landscape in the United States differs from the situation in the 19th century, particularly concerning racial issues. During that time, Democrats were supporters of slavery, while under the leadership of Abraham Lincoln, Republicans played a pivotal role in abolishing slavery in America. It is important to note that the first 10 presidential elections in America were not through contests between political parties, and it wasn't until the 1828 elections that elections became genuinely partisan. Considering the Whig Party, which was the predecessor of the Republican Party, as a part of the Republican legacy, the Republican Party held the presidency for a significant period of 100 years, while the Democrats governed for a total 95 years. This shift in party dominance can largely be attributed to the aftermath of the Civil War. For 16 elections and 64 years, Democrats only managed to govern for 16 years. However, from the 1932 to 1952, they held continuous power for 20 years. Aside from these two examples, there has been an almost 8-year alternation in the presidency between the two parties, and only once in 1988 the Republicans were able to retain power after an 8-year term. Another noteworthy aspect is the presence of dominant party system in some states where elections are not very competitive. We have a video discussing the dominant party system and you can find the link above. In brief, due to historical, cultural, and racial social factors, a majority of elected officials in certain states come from only one political party. Among the 50 states in America, 20 are considered red or Republican dominant, and another 20 are labeled blue or Democratic dominant. The remaining 10 states are considered competitive and called swing states. As a result, the outcome of the presidential election is effectively determined by the voting patterns in these competitive states, as the electoral votes in other states are relatively predictable. However, it is essential to acknowledge that over time, the political landscape of states may undergo changes, and such shifts have occurred on multiple occasions. Thank you for watching this video about the politics of the USA. If you found the content informative, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Feel free to leave any questions or suggestions for future topics in the comment section. Thank you for watching and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.